We don't always get to choose our family, but sometimes our families choose us. In fact, you never get to choose your family. You know what? Actually, I take that back. You do get to choose your own family. But maybe it's not the family that was chosen for you. Family isn't about blood. It's not about DNA. It's not about your, who you're related to, like, by, heritage and all that. It's not even a law. Family isn't even determined by law. It's not who the law has proclaimed is your family. So I grew up in a foster home, but my foster parents, they're not my family. No, they were mean to me, and they kicked me out when I was, I can't even remember. As I've said before, that whole area in my life is so blurry and hazy because of my severe PTSD. I lost track of time, and when I think about it, it makes me panic. But I'm going to say probably like 17 or 18. But they kicked me out. I wasn't ready. I was a kid, and I was thrown into a world that was not at all for kids. The world I was thrown into was cold, and it was very, very dark. And I was not prepared. And sometimes you have to choose whether you're going to live or die. Those are your only choices. And I got really, 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 really close. I was one literal trigger away from choosing die. They inflicted that pain on me and all sorts of other pain on me growing up. Loneliness, and sadness, and they would mistreat my my birth sister a lot too. They would make her cry a lot, and a lot of times I was the only one that would comfort her. I did my best to be a brother, but she's not in my life anymore either. Just that's a much longer story that we don't need to talk about. But it's not that law doesn't decide who your family is either. Sometimes it's the people that you meet along the way, and they take you in. Sometimes these people, like, you see, they take you in and you're just drawn to them, and they love you in a way that no one else has loved you before. And it's weird, even though you're complete strangers. Sometimes it's your best friends, my best friends growing up, I consider them my family. Or at least at one point. I don't know if we're still, we haven't, our lives went different directions. But as a kid, my friends were the best family I had, and the only thing I had. But sometimes you go through life and there are other characters you meet. And sometimes it's a college professor who taught me everything I knew about photography, and whose philosophy class I fell in love with. I loved learning about like everything that he would teach, because he did it in a very like knowledgeable way. My college professor, he was a really old guy, and he's sort of like the grandfather I never had. I would go as far to say that. I never told him that, but sometimes I wish I could, but sometimes you just can't put certain things into words, But take him for example. This would be like right before my homelessness situation, and because when I was homeless, I had to drop out of college. Homeless, can't go to college anymore, and I tried to kill myself. so I couldn't do college anymore. The pressure was too much. Had a really serious mental breakdown at the college, and I was also working at the college part time too. But I had a breakdown at work, and I just couldn't do it anymore. I had to drop out. But but while I was at the college, he took me under his wing. I would work the front desk, and he would be in his office with his door open all the time, unless he needed to up like a business meeting or something. I don't know. But when he wasn't doing anything, he would spend a lot of his free time talking to me. And it turns out we both liked photography, and he was a professional photographer too. He knew a lot of things about a lot of things. And we bonded over photography. And the real reason I consider him like the father, not like the grandfather I never had, isn't because of how we bonded over certain things like photography and art and philosophy and just life, I guess. It's not those things. Why I really consider that person like the father I never had, or like the grandfather I never had, because he was an old guy, is because of what he did for me one day. I don't know. I have told this story. Maybe not this side of it, but I feel like it's one worth telling. At least telling again. And it's not easy to talk about, but I'm going to talk about it just because I feel like it's important to get off my chest. When I stole a gun to commit suicide, I was caught a few days later, and I was arrested. I had a hearing to go to, and while I was still working at the college, give me a second. I haven't cried in a long time. At this point in my life, I don't cry, not because I'm too man enough to cry, but it's just because I feel like I've just cried so much that I just don't feel like I have any more tears to give, There's just nothing left, no tears left, But talking about this, it might do it. But whenever I had my hearing, on the day of the hearing, I was working part-time at the college that day. I still had my job there. And I had to leave early, I think. I don't know. From my work study position. We were at the front desk, and the professor was there, and I looked at him and I said, "Professor, I don't know if I should give him a fake name. We'll call him Mr. We'll call him I don't know, I can't think of a fake name. We'll call him Mr. Elliot." So I look at him and I say, "Mr. Elliot, I'm so fucking scared right now. Can you please come with me?" To just be there for me, And he did it. He left in the middle of his job, and he drove me to my hearing, and he sat in the audience section of the courtroom, and he was there for me during the whole thing. No one else was there for me. Not my family, not anyone that I'd considered friends growing up, because at this point it was like a year out of high school and we'd already drifted apart. So the only human that I could consider a friend that day was Professor Elliot. And he was there for me when no one else was. And I remember that. I will remember that my whole life. And during the hearing, I was so scared. I was shaking. I couldn't even speak. So I'd go in there. The judge, when it was my time to go up, the judge would speak to me. And at first, I couldn't speak, but I shook my head. And the person that has to write everything down would say, "Sir, can you please verbally respond or whatever? You can't shake your head." So I had to be reminded that I had to speak because I just couldn't. I was that scared. And fear is something like, as an adult, men are conditioned, like told by society, you shouldn't be afraid, you're a man. But here I am, I'm a grown man. I don't know how old I was. Like, I think I was like 18 or 19. I don't remember. Um, but you could bet your ass I was pissing and shitting my pants, scared, because I was scared that I was gonna go to jail. All just because I wanted to kill myself. I stole a gun to kill myself, and I thought I was gonna go to jail for that. I was caught a few days because I don't want to go through the whole story because it's already been like 10 minutes. But basically, I stole the gun. I tried to do it. I couldn't do it. I waited like a day or two too long. They noticed that it was gone, and I got caught. But the long and short story of it is, my Professor Elliot was there for me the whole time through the trial. My public defender, or the lawyer person they assigned to you, he said, I really think you should consider pleading guilty, unless you're not afraid to go to jail, are you? And he asked me that, and my blood froze cold, man. I was like, no. I just, like, in a little kid's voice. Here I am, a grown man at this point, an adult, but I answer in this like kid's voice, no. So I pled guilty, but my professor was there for me through the whole thing. And after that, he took me to Subway and we had lunch together. That's why I consider him like family. Family is the people who are there for you whenever you need them. And that's not always the people you're related to by blood. It's not always the people you're related to on paper. Sometimes it's the people that are there for you when you are shitting your pants scared and you need someone to lean on. And you can bet I leaned on that man a lot because I had nothing to grasp like onto, because it was a very, very dark time in my life. But growing up, I would consider my friends my family also, because something similar, because I couldn't defend myself, but they would defend me for me, because I was bullied a lot as a kid, and they would stand up for me. It's reasons like that that I consider them my family. When I became an adult, I know this is getting kind of long, but I feel like I should add this. I feel like this belongs in this topic. When I became an adult, after I was no longer homeless, I started to search for my birth family, because I hadn't learned the lesson yet. And it's something that you'll never understand unless you've been adopted before. It's something only an adopted person will understand. The desire, because it's weird. Like, I mean, I know this now, but just like, there's this desire to know the people who are biologically my family, my birth parents, and I wanted to know who they were. I thought, maybe I don't have a family right now. Like, I have no one. Right? Maybe my old family will take me in. You know. I guess I was searching for a family. I didn't find it though, because I waited like 2 years. This is also I'll make this one short. I waited. I worked with an investigator to search for my birth parents, and it was very long. A lot of it was waiting. A lot of it was searching. The investigator did his job. I never met him face to face, but we would work online. He would do his job, and sometimes I would do my own investigation, just from memory. Like, I would search, go back to places that I could vaguely remember as a kid, and ask around That's a whole nother story. But basically, eventually the trail went cold for a long time, and then one day there was a hit. They say, we found your birth father, and we found your cousins. But who I was really searching for was my mom. I wanted to see my mom. But I said, yeah, okay. They asked me, do we have your permission to give your dad your phone number? And I said, yeah. And how do I summarize our relationship? Something else that was interesting to note. Eventually, there was a hit for. They said they found my cousins, or my uncle. Turns out he lived in town, in the town that I was currently living in, which is the same town that I currently live in now. I went to go visit them. Like, I think I learned about my cousins maybe like. I think maybe like a year or two after I met my dad. Um, but meeting my dad though, if I could summarize the whole story, I know it's like 16-minute video, long video now, but I don't know if anyone out there is listening to this, but maybe if you listen to this long, maybe if you could just stick with me a little longer, because I feel like this is worth telling and it's worth listening to. My birth father could not speak a lot of English, and I did not speak any Spanish. I did when I was a little bit when I was like a little kid before I was adopted, and my foster parents stomped it out of me. They stomped out this language that I was meant to speak, and because of them, I will never ever have a proper relationship with my father. I tried for like a year, but after a year of trying to have a conversation with my dad and him just not understanding, after time and time again, I just trying to have conversations via Google Translate, I just couldn't do it, and so I just stopped. Eventually I stopped visiting him and I stopped answering his calls. He still tries to call me and I don't answer them, and I feel really bad for that, but it's not his fault and it's not my fault. Sometimes it's just impossible to have a relationship with someone if you don't understand each other. But anyway, about a year or there's a twist coming up, just to go along with me. About a year after I met my dad, I of course I asked him all these questions to continue my investigation to find my mom. And eventually I get him. He lived like 2 hours away, but eventually I get him to come to town, and we drive around and we look for my uncle, who he said he used to hang out with whenever he lived in the area, and it's who he met my mom through. I could tell you a lot of stories about what I learned in my search for my birth family, but I have to summarize it because I just can't tell all of it in one video. But eventually we found my uncle, and I had cousins in the area, and I got the worst news, one of the worst news in my whole life, because the trail, there was a hit again. I found my cousins, but then immediately went cold again because they look at me and I meet them, they look at me and they tell me, your mother's been missing for like 16 years. We haven't heard from her in years, and nobody knows where she's at. They say the last anyone heard from her, she was in Mexico, and she's missing. No one knows anything about her. That's not the end of the story, but the point that I was trying to make in the beginning of why I'm making this video, it's about family. And the point is that I don't really talk to them anymore either. I did for just like my dad. My cousins could speak perfect English, but the problem there is that just like how my dad couldn't understand me like on a linguistic level, my cousins couldn't really understand me on like like a personal level. Like, I tried telling them the story of my terrible childhood and they couldn't understand it. They didn't relate. And they never said it, but I had a feeling that they were even a little skeptical too. But of course, I didn't tell them everything. I didn't tell them about my time being homeless or with the gun or their. But I tried. I tried to have a relationship with them, and we just and they put a lot of effort into. It's not their fault. They weren't bad people. They were good people, but it felt, the long and short of it is, it felt like I was trying to invite myself into their family. I felt like I was an outsider trying to become an insider. But it's just whenever they don't understand you, whenever they haven't been there for you most of your life, you can't just meet strangers and immediately turn on the "you're my family now" light switch. I mean, it's something that has to be earned over like shared experiences and like and stuff like that. But they were good people. And actually, the other day I met one of them like inside of a McDonald's, and I just went up to them and said hi. So they're not bad people, and I would still talk to them. It's just that we don't talk. I spent for a couple of years. I spent like a few holidays over there. But to wrap this up, I know it's been 20 minutes now. I guess to wrap this up, the moral of the story is family isn't decided for you. It's something you decide for yourself. That's the moral of the story. You decide who your family is. And when you figure it out, let them know. Don't let them get away. All right, that's it. Thank you.